Hello, nerds and new traders. I am back with another video. And in the last video that we uh, uploaded, we were teaching consolidation. In this video, we're going to be teaching a different type of movement. Instead of teaching sideways movement, aka consolidation, we're going to be teaching up and down movement. So we kind of have an idea of how to identify upwards movement and downwards movement, otherwise known as trends. But how do we mark that up in our chart? And how do we properly identify when we should be marking an upwards and downwards trend? Now, there is a little bit of a trick to it because it's not the same marking a chart up as it is marking a chart down. The first thing you want to do is find a good zone that you saw a significant uptrend or a significant downtrend. Here, I see a good uptrend. We won't really know how good of an uptrend it is, I should say, until we actually put a trend line on it. So this one's a little messy, as you can see. One thing you don't want is you don't want this line to be overly slanted. So if it's kind of starting to get a little bit straight, well, I mean, it's not exactly straight, but it's not very slanted, as you can see. So you don't want it to be underslanted, is what I meant to say. When it's underslanted, that's a sign that the area that you're looking at isn't quite right? And this one's a little bit less slanted than I'd like. We kind of want it to be at a 90-degree angle. So I'm going to look for a different zone. Maybe here. Let's see. In order to use the trend line on your chart, you have to go to your tools, and you have a section with lines titled trend lines. And the first tool should be the trend line. Oops, I'm doing this wrong. That is a magnificent zone for a downtrend. So as we can see, a downtrend occurred from this top zone all the way to this bottom. Another thing that I've always been a fan of, and you can use once you're a little bit more of a well-versed trader, is these parallel channels. The reason I like parallel channels is because you can kind of see almost like a downward consolidation trend in a way. But because it's introductory, we're not going to use it this time. We're simply going to look at the one line. So if we see this downtrend line kind of shows how the market retouched that trend line until it finally broke out. Now if we take a quick look, we do have a breakout here. We have a retest, which was a little tricky because there was some drawdown after that, but it did significantly rise up and change directions, which is the whole point of marking up these uptrends and downtrends. Now I'm going to try to find an uptrend for you guys. This might be it here. I take my trend line again and place it underneath for an uptrend. That's interesting. It's the same kind of scenario. So market went up, touched the trend line, went up, touched the trend line. However, here it looked like almost like a breakout, but it was actually a fake out because it went right back into the trend line. Went up, touched the trend line, went up, touched the trend line. Another fake out here, went into the trend once again, and then had a true breakout. And the reason being is it didn't go back in this zone. It broke out, retested the zone, consolidated for a while. So this would have been a very, very hard trade. But it did, however, eventually head downwards. And see, this is an example, guys, of how not every trend trade is going to work in your favor. And we'll explain more into detail on what I mean by that, because for brand new traders, you have no clue what I'm talking about. All you need to do as a new trader is learn how to identify these zones. So the one thing that you do need to remember is that for downwards trend, your trend line sits on top. And for upwards trend, your trend line sits on the bottom. Kind of like the way support and resistance works, right? So this is a resistance because it started from a sky. So you set your line above these candlesticks. But for a support, because it started with the earth, you set your line on the bottom.